Taman wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the mess in front of him. The cargo bay was full of broken crates, twisted metal, and things he couldn't even name. He'd been hired to clean out this abandoned section of Crossroads Haven, a massive space station where aliens from dozens of worlds came to trade. The pay wasn't great, but work was work, and Taman needed the credits to keep his salvage ship running. He moved a fallen beam out of the way and froze. There, wedged between two containers, was something that made his breath catch. It looked like a giant egg, about the size of his torso, with a shell that seemed to be made of crystal. Faint light pulsed inside it like a slow heartbeat. When Taman touched it carefully, warmth spread through his gloved fingers. "What are you?" he whispered. He pulled out his scanner and ran it over the egg. The device beeped and flashed error messages. It couldn't identify what species the egg belonged to. That was strange. Station databases had information on thousands of alien life forms. For his scanner to come up blank meant this was something rare, maybe even something the station had never seen before. Taman knew he should report this to station security. That was the rule. But something made him hesitate. He'd been working the outer stations long enough to know what happened to rare finds. The station authorities would take it, study it, maybe sell it to the highest bidder. And if there was something alive in there, well, nobody would care much about that. He stood there for a long time looking at the egg. The light inside pulsed again, and he could swear he felt something. Like the thing inside was aware of him. It was probably his imagination. But Taman couldn't shake the feeling that if he left this egg here, he'd be abandoning something that needed help. "This is stupid," he told himself, but he carefully wrapped the egg in padding from the cargo bay and loaded it onto his cart. He covered it with scrap metal and old tarps. His heart pounded as he pushed the cart through the station corridors. Every security guard he passed made him nervous, but nobody stopped him. Nobody looked twice at another salvager hauling junk. Back on his ship, a small vessel he'd named the Wanderer, Taman set up a corner of his living quarters for the egg. He used heating elements to keep it warm and built a cushioned nest from blankets. It felt ridiculous playing nursemaid to an egg, but he couldn't help himself. Over the next few days, Taman tried to find information about the egg. He searched through databases, asked questions in trader forums, and even paid for access to xenobiology archives. Finally, he found something. A single entry, barely a paragraph long, mentioned eggs with crystalline shells. They belonged to a species called the Drachmere, sometimes called dragons by humans who'd seen them. The entry said Drachmere were ancient, powerful, and extremely rare. They lived for thousands of years and could survive in the vacuum of space. They were also incredibly territorial and didn't interact with other species. Most importantly, the entry mentioned that Drachmere sometimes abandoned eggs that didn't meet their standards. Those eggs were left to die. Taman sat back in his chair, staring at the egg in its nest. They just leave their kids to die? What kind of people do that? The egg pulsed with light as if responding to his voice. From that moment on, Taman talked to the egg. He knew it was silly, but it felt right. He told it about his day, about the repairs he was making to the ship, about the stars outside. He played music sometimes, old songs from Earth that his mother had loved. The egg always seemed to pulse brighter when he was nearby. Weeks passed. Taman took small salvage jobs in quiet systems, avoiding the busy stations. He didn't want anyone asking questions about his cargo. The egg grew slightly warmer each day, and the light inside grew stronger. He found himself checking on it constantly, making sure the temperature was right, that it was comfortable. One night, Taman was in the cockpit, running through system checks, when he heard a sound from the living quarters. It was a soft cracking noise like ice breaking. He rushed back and found the egg rocking slightly. Cracks were spreading across its crystalline surface, glowing from within. Okay, this is happening," Taman said, kneeling beside the nest. His hands shook. He had no idea what to do, no manual for this. He just watched, hardly breathing. The cracks widened. Pieces of shell fell away, revealing glimpses of something inside. Colors shifted, blues and greens and silvers. Then with a final push, a section of shell broke free and a small head emerged. It was a dragon, a tiny dragon no bigger than a cat with scales that shimmered like oil on water. Its eyes were huge and golden, with vertical pupils that focused on Taman immediately. The little creature chirped, a sound like bells mixed with birdsong. It struggled to climb out of the shell, wings that looked too big for its body flapping awkwardly. Taman reached out without thinking and helped it. carefully supporting the hatchling as it tumbled free. It was warm and surprisingly solid, though it trembled like it was cold. He wrapped it in a soft blanket, and the little dragon immediately pressed against his chest, still chirping. "Hey there," Taemin said softly. His throat felt tight. "You're okay? I've got you." The dragon looked up at him, golden eyes meeting his. In that moment, something happened that Taemin couldn't explain. It felt like a door opening in his mind, like two pieces of a puzzle clicking together. The dragon's fear and confusion washed over him, but also trust, immediate and absolute. The little creature somehow knew that Taemin was safe, was family. Taemin felt his eyes sting with tears. He'd been alone for so long, drifting from station to station, job to job. He'd convinced himself he liked it that way, that he didn't need anyone. But holding this tiny, vulnerable life in his hands, feeling its complete trust in him, something inside him cracked open just like that egg. "I'll take care of you," he promised. "I don't know how, but I will." The dragon chirped again, softer now, and closed its eyes. Within moments it was asleep, breathing slowly and steadily. Taemin sat there on the floor, holding the sleeping hatchling, and knew his life had just changed completely. He thought about the Drakmir who had abandoned this egg, who had decided this little life wasn't worth saving. Anger burned in his chest. How could they? How could anyone look at something so small and helpless and just walk away? "They don't deserve you," he whispered to the sleeping dragon. "But I'm going to make sure you grow up strong and safe. I promise you that." Outside the ship, stars burned in the darkness of space. Somewhere out there were the Drakmir, ancient and powerful and uncaring. Somewhere out there were people who would pay fortunes for a dragon hatchling. Somewhere out there were threats Taemin couldn't even imagine. But right now, in this moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was the small weight in his arms, the steady breathing, the trust that had been given to him. Taemin knew that taking this egg had probably been the most foolish thing he'd ever done. He knew that nothing about his life would be simple anymore. He looked down at the sleeping dragon and smiled. "Worth it," he said quietly. 3 months had changed everything. The dragon hatchling, whom Taemin had named Hanel after the Korean word for sky, had grown from the size of a cat to something closer to a large dog. The scales that covered Hanel's body shifted colors in the light, showing greens and blues and purples that seemed to glow from within. Small wings folded against Hanel's back, still too weak for flight but growing stronger each day. Taemin had discovered that raising a dragon was nothing like he'd expected. Hanel was smart, frighteningly smart. The hatchling learned to understand human speech within weeks and could follow complex instructions. Hanel watched everything Taemin did with intense focus, those golden eyes tracking every movement. Sometimes Taemin caught Hanel trying to copy him, pressing buttons on the ship's control panel or attempting to hold tools in small, clawed hands. They'd developed routines together. Mornings started with breakfast, chunks of protein-rich meat that Hanel devoured with happy chirps. Then came lessons. Taemin taught Hanel about the ship, about space, about the different alien species they might encounter. Hanel absorbed it all like a sponge, head tilting when confused, eyes brightening with understanding. But what amazed Taemin most was the bond between them. He could feel Hanel's emotions like they were his own. When Hanel was happy, warmth spread through Taemin's chest. When the hatchling was frightened, Taemin felt it like a cold grip on his heart. And somehow Hanel seemed to feel his emotions too, always pressing close when Taemin was stressed or tired. They'd been avoiding the major space stations, staying in quiet corners of known space. Taemin took small salvage jobs that paid just enough to keep the ship running and buy supplies. But the Wanderer was starting to show its age. Strange noises came from the engine, and the navigation system kept glitching. Taemin had patched what he could, but some repairs needed proper equipment and a real mechanic. That was why he found himself docking at the Wanderer's Rest, a station that was half bar and half port, serving the roughest elements of frontier space. It wasn't safe, but it was where you went when you needed work done without questions asked. "Stay close to me," Taemin told Hanel as they prepared to leave the ship. He'd wrapped a large cloak around the dragon, hiding Hanel's distinctive features. "And if anything happens, you run back to the ship. Understand?" Hanel chirped softly. A sound Taemin had learned meant agreement. The dragon pressed against his leg, and Taemin felt nervous anticipation flowing through their bond. The bar section of the Wanderer's Rest was exactly as rough as Taemin remembered. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of alien alcohol. Dozens of species filled the space. Insectoid creatures with too many legs clicked and chittered in one corner. Massive beings covered in rock-like skin played dice games. Snake-like aliens with multiple heads argued in hissing voices. Behind the bar stood Krelvoth, the owner, a huge alien with 6 arms and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. He was a hexeran, a species known for being impossible to cheat and even harder to intimidate. Krelvoth ran the station with simple rules: no killing on the premises, pay your debts, and don't cause trouble he couldn't profit from. Taemin made his way through the crowd, Hanul following close behind, hidden under the cloak. He found an empty spot at the bar and waited for his contact. A mechanic named Vextail had agreed to meet him here, someone who could fix the Wanderer's engine without asking uncomfortable questions. "You're late," a raspy voice said. Vextail was an amphibious alien, skin slick with moisture, eyes on stalks that moved independently. "And you brought a pet?" "I don't work on biology. My companion," Taemin corrected. "And I just need you to fix my ship's engine core." The job we discussed. They were negotiating the price when Taemin felt Hanul tense beside him. Through their bond came a spike of fear. He looked down and saw several reptilian aliens approaching. Kryn pirates, he realized. They were known for raiding cargo ships and dealing in illegal goods. "Excuse me, human," one of the Kryn said, yellow eyes fixed on Hanul. "That's an interesting cloak your friend is wearing. Seems a bit warm for environmental controls, doesn't it?" "We're just here for business," Taemin said carefully. "No trouble." "No trouble," the Kryn agreed, showing too many teeth in what might have been a smile. "But I've got good eyes and I see good things." Like draconic scales peeking out from under that cloak. The bar didn't go silent, but conversations nearby definitely quieted. Aliens were watching now, interested. "You've got the wrong idea," Taemin started, but the Kryn wasn't listening. He reached for Hanul, claws extended. "Let's just have a look, shall we? Dragon parts fetch good prices and babies fetch even better." Everything happened fast. Taemin stepped between the Kryn and Hanul, shoving the pirate back. The Kryn's companions moved forward, hands on weapons. Hanul's cloak tore as the dragon scrambled backward, frightened. And just like that, everyone could see what Hanul was. The bar went completely silent. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned to look at the small dragon standing there, scales shimmering, golden eyes wide with fear. Someone dropped a glass and it shattered on the floor, the sound impossibly loud in the quiet. Dragons were legends. Most species had heard of the Drakmir, but few had ever seen one. They were ancient, powerful, and isolated. Their young were never seen outside their own territory. To have a dragon hatchling here in a frontier bar was impossible. The Kryn pirates backed up a step, suddenly unsure. Even they knew what dragon eggs were worth, but they also knew what adult dragons could do. If a parent was nearby, they were all dead. Hanul looked around at all the staring eyes, at the aliens pressing closer, at the Kryn who'd grabbed for them. Terror flooded through the bond, so strong it made Taemin's heart race. The hatchling's legs trembled, wings spreading defensively. Then Hanul looked up at Taemin, those golden eyes full of fear and desperate need. "Dad." The word echoed through the bar, not just as sound but as something more. It was voice and thought and emotion all at once, resonating in a way that every being present could understand. "Help!" The silence that followed was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. Dragons didn't bond. It was known throughout the galaxy. The Drakmir were solitary, raising their young to be independent and strong. They didn't form attachments, especially not to other species. It was fundamental to their nature, to their culture, to everything anyone knew about them. But this hatchling had just called a human dad. Not an accident. Not in confusion, but with a depth of emotion that couldn't be faked. The bond was visible in that moment, like a thread of light connecting them, real and undeniable. Taemin didn't think. He just moved, scooping Hanul up and holding the trembling dragon close. "I've got you," he said softly. "You're safe." Hanul pressed against him, chirping, and Taemin felt the terror slowly easing through their bond. The Kryn pirates were backing away now, hands up, all aggression gone. You didn't mess with bonded pairs. That was a rule older than most civilizations, and a bond between a human and a dragon, that was something no one wanted to be responsible for breaking. Heavy footsteps approached. Krelvoth crossed the bar, all 6 arms hanging loose, his expression unreadable. He stopped in front of Taemin and Hanul, looking down at them with ancient eyes. "Human," Krelvoth said, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent bar. "Do you understand what you've done?" Taemin met his gaze steadily, still holding Hanul. "I raised a kid who needed someone. That's all. That's all," Krelvoth repeated. Then, incredibly, he laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound that shook the floor. "You have no idea what you've started, do you?" He turned to address the entire bar. "New rule, everyone. The human and the dragon are under my protection while they're here. Anyone who touches them answers to me. Understood?" There was a chorus of agreement. No one argued with Krelvoth in his own bar. "Come with me," Krelvoth said to Taemin. "We need to talk now." As they followed him to a private room, Taemin held Hanul close. He could feel eyes on them from every corner of the bar. Everything had changed in the space of a single word. Hanul had called him Dad, and the galaxy had heard. Krelvoth's private office was nothing like the chaotic bar outside. The walls were lined with strange artifacts and old weapons. A massive desk dominated the center, covered in data pads and communication devices. The Hexeron settled his bulk into a reinforced chair and gestured for Taemin to sit. Hanul stayed close to Taemin, still nervous, golden eyes watching everything. "Drink?" Krelvoth offered, pouring something purple into a glass. "I'm good," Taemin said. "What did you mean out there?" "What have I done?" Krelvoth studied them both for a long moment. "I'm going to tell you a story, human. About 20 years ago, I was crew on a diplomatic vessel. We got lost in uncharted space and we stumbled into Drakmir territory. Most ships that do that never come back. We were lucky. They escorted us out and let us live. But I saw their world. I saw the dragons," he paused, drinking from his glass. "They're not like other species. They don't just live, they endure. I watched a dragon that looked ancient fight off 3 younger ones just for entering its territory. No mercy, no hesitation. That's their way. The strong survive, the weak are abandoned. They don't form attachments because attachments are weaknesses." "That's horrible," Taemin said. "That's their culture," Krelvoth corrected. "But here's what you need to understand. In all the thousands of years that species have known about the Drakmir, there has never been a recorded case of a dragon bonding with another species. Never. It's considered impossible. Their biology, their psychology, everything about them prevents it." He leaned forward, all 6 arms resting on the desk. "Until now. Until a human salvager raised a hatchling that was supposed to die, and that hatchling called him Dad in a way that every species in my bar understood as real." Taemin felt Hanul press closer to him. He put a hand on the dragon's head, feeling the warm scales. "So what does that mean?" "It means you've done something unprecedented," Krelvoth said. "And unprecedented things get attention. The Drakmir will come. They'll want to see this bond, to judge whether it should exist. And they're not the only ones. Do you know what a dragon egg sells for on the black market? I can guess. Now multiply that by 100 because your dragon isn't just any hatchling. Your dragon has done something impossible. Every scientist, every collector, every government will want to study Hanul. Or take Hanul. Or kill Hanul to prevent this from spreading." Cold fear settled in Taemin's stomach. "I won't let that happen. I believe you," Krelvoth said. "Which is why I'm going to help you. I've got contacts, people who can give you information and assistance. But you need to understand the weight of what you're carrying. A bond with a Drakmir isn't just emotional. It's biological, psychological, maybe even spiritual. As Hanul grows, that bond will grow. You'll share strength, pain, maybe even life force." "I don't care," Taemin said firmly. "Hanul is my kid. That's all that matters." Hanul chirped softly and warmth spread through their bond. The dragon looked up at Taemin with trust so complete it made his chest ache. Krelvoth made a rumbling sound that might have been approval. "There's a human scientist named Do-Hyun working in the Outer Rim. He studies cross-species relationships and might have information that can help you. I'll send you his coordinates. There's also a pilot named Ji-Woo. She's got reasons to be wary of dragons, but she's reliable and knows how to disappear when needed." "Why are you helping us?" Taemin asked. "Because I'm old enough to remember when species didn't talk to each other, when we all stayed in our own corners of space and killed anyone different," Krelvoth said. "What you and Hanul have, that's something new, maybe something better, and I'd like to see where it goes." A soft alarm chimed from one of the devices on Krelvoth's desk. The Hexeron's expression changed, all his eyes focusing on the screen. "We've got a problem." Long-range sensors just picked up 3 massive ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They're Drakmir vessels. Tayman's heart sank. Already? The Kryn pirates sent out messages before they left my bar, Krelvoth explained. They're greedy, not stupid. They figured they could sell the information about you and Hanul. The Drakmir must have been monitoring communication channels. What do we do? You run, Krelvoth said simply. He pressed buttons on his desk and a door opened in the wall. This leads directly to the docking bay. I'll have Jiwoo meet you there. She'll get you out of here. Tayman stood, lifting Hanul into his arms. The dragon was heavier now, but still easy enough to carry. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Krelvoth said. The hard part is just beginning. The Drakmir won't stop until they've judged your bond, and their judgments are usually final. They rushed through the hidden corridor, Tayman's mind racing. Everything was happening so fast. 3 months ago, he'd been a simple salvager with no ties to anyone. Now he was running from ancient dragons while carrying a hatchling that had become the most important thing in his world. Hanul chirped nervously, sensing his stress. It's okay, Tayman said, though he wasn't sure it was true. We'll figure this out. The corridor opened onto the docking bay. A sleek ship waited there, more advanced than anything Tayman could afford. A woman stood at the entrance ramp, human with short dark hair and sharp eyes. She wore a pilot's jacket covered in patches from dozens of stations. You're Tayman, she said. It wasn't a question. I'm Jiwoo. Krelvoth says you need a ride and you need it fast. That's right. Jiwoo's eyes went to Hanul and something complicated crossed her face. Pain, anger, sadness. But she pushed it down and gestured to her ship. Get in. We need to leave before those Drakmir ships get in weapons range. They boarded quickly, Jiwoo heading straight for the cockpit while Tayman secured himself and Hanul in the passenger area. The ship's engines hummed to life with a sound that spoke of expensive maintenance and quality parts. This was no salvage vessel. This was a ship built for speed and survival. Hang on, Jiwoo called back. This is going to be rough. The ship launched from the docking bay like a bullet, acceleration pressing Tayman back into his seat. Hanul squawked in surprise but stayed calm, trusting that everything was okay. Through the viewport, Tayman could see the Wanderer's Rest falling away behind them, and beyond it, 3 massive shapes that blotted out the stars. The Drakmir ships were like nothing Tayman had seen before. They looked organic, like they'd been grown rather than built. They moved through space with predatory grace, and even at this distance he could feel their power. They're fast, Jiwoo said, her hands flying over the controls. Faster than us. I can't outrun them in a straight line. Then what do? We get creative. She pulled the ship into a hard turn, diving toward a nearby asteroid field. And we pray your little friend there is worth all this trouble. Tayman looked at Hanul, who chirped softly and pressed against him. Through their bond, he felt the dragon's fear but also determination. Hanul trusted him completely, believed he would keep them safe. Worth it, Tayman said quietly. Every bit of it. Jiwoo glanced back at them, something in her expression softening. You really mean that, don't you? Yes. She turned back to the controls, but Tayman heard her mutter. Maybe Krelvoth was right about you. The ship plunged into the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks at speeds that made Tayman's stomach flip. Behind them, the Drakmir ships followed, their movements precise and relentless. They didn't communicate, didn't threaten. They just pursued with the patience of beings who had all the time in the world. Duhyun is 3 jumps from here, Jiwoo said. We'll head there first, get some answers. But Tayman, you need to understand something. Those ships back there, they're not going to give up. The Drakmir don't forgive and they don't forget. Whatever you and Hanul have, you're going to have to prove it's real. It is real, Tayman said, holding Hanul close. Then we better hope that's enough. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Drakmir vessels behind. But Tayman knew it was only temporary. They were coming, and when they caught up, there would be a reckoning. He looked down at Hanul, at the dragon who had called him Dad, who trusted him with everything. I won't let them take you, he promised. Whatever it takes. Hanul chirped softly and closed golden eyes, falling asleep despite everything. In sleep, the dragon looked so young, so vulnerable. But through their bond, Tayman could feel something else. Strength growing slowly but surely. Hanul wasn't just a helpless hatchling anymore. They were growing together, learning together, becoming something new. And maybe that was what scared the Drakmir most of all. They'd been running for 2 weeks, jumping from system to system, never staying anywhere long enough to rest properly. Jiwoo was a skilled pilot, using every trick she knew to throw off pursuit. But the Drakmir ships kept appearing, always a few hours behind, patient and relentless. Hanul had grown even more in that time. The dragon was now the size of a large wolf, scales gleaming with inner light. Small horns had begun to emerge from Hanul's head, and the wings were strong enough for short flights inside the ship's cargo bay. But more than physical growth, Hanul's mind was developing at an incredible pace. The dragon could understand complex conversations now and even formed simple words, though speaking was still difficult. They'd made contact with Do-hyun, the scientist Krelvoth had mentioned. He'd been fascinated by their story and had spent hours in video calls, asking questions and running tests remotely. He was a quiet man with kind eyes and an endless curiosity about how different species could connect. "The bond you share is remarkable," Do-hyun had said during their last call. "I'm reading energy patterns I've never seen before. It's like your minds have partially merged. When Hanul grows to full size, this bond might make you both stronger than any Drakmir has ever been." "What about the Drakmir culture?" Taemin had asked. "Why do they hate bonds so much?" "They don't hate them," Do-hyun explained. "They fear them. To a species that values individual strength above everything, the idea of depending on another being is terrifying. They think bonds make you weak, vulnerable. But in reality, I think they're scared of what bonded dragons might become. Too powerful, too different." Now, sitting in Jiwoo's ship as they approached another remote system, Taemin thought about those words. He watched Hanul practice breathing small flames. The dragon's concentration absolute. Each little success brought joy through their bond, making Taemin smile despite their situation. "You're good at that," Jiwoo said, watching Hanul. She'd slowly warmed to them over the days, though Taemin had noticed she kept her distance from Hanul. "Can I ask you something?" Taemin said. "Why do you tense up whenever Hanul gets close?" Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment, her hands steady on the controls. Finally, she spoke. 10 years ago, I was part of a colony on the edge of Drakmir territory. We didn't know we'd crossed the border. By the time we realized, it was too late. A dragon came, a massive one. It destroyed half the colony in minutes. My parents were in that half." "I'm sorry," Taemin said quietly. "The thing is, I know it wasn't personal to the dragon. We were in its territory, and it was just doing what its culture demanded. But it's hard to forget, seeing Hanul, knowing what dragons can become." She shook her head. "But watching you two together, seeing how much you care for each other, it's making me question things I thought I knew." Hanul padded over to Jiwoo, moving slowly, carefully. The dragon chirped softly and placed something on the console in front of her. It was a small crystal, one that Hanul had been treasuring for days. "A gift?" Jiwoo stared at it, then at Hanul. "Is this for me?" Hanul chirped again, nodding. Something in Jiwoo's expression cracked. She picked up the crystal with careful fingers. "Thank you, Hanul." The ship's alarm interrupted the moment. "We've got a problem," Jiwoo said, her voice sharp. "The Drakmir ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. And they're close, really close." "How close?" Taemin asked. "Close enough that they can trap us. They've positioned themselves to block all the jump points. We can't run anymore." Taemin felt cold fear through the bond from Hanul. The dragon moved to his side, pressing close. "What do we do?" "We land on that moon down there," Jiwoo said, pointing to a barren rock orbiting a dead planet. "Maybe we can hide." But as they descended, 3 massive shapes appeared in the sky above. The Drakmir ships didn't fire, didn't threaten. They simply waited, blocking any escape. Then, like falling stars, 3 dragons descended from the ships. They were enormous, each one the size of Jiwoo's entire ship. Their scales gleamed like metal, and power radiated from them in waves that made the air itself tremble. They landed in a triangle formation around Jiwoo's ship, and the ground shook with the impact. "Stay inside," Jiwoo said. "Let me handle this." But when she opened the cargo door, a voice like thunder spoke. "Send out the human and the hatchling." "This is not a request." Taemin looked at Hanul, who was trembling despite trying to be brave. Through their bond, he felt the dragon's fear but also determination. Hanul wouldn't hide while Taemin faced danger. "Together," Taemin said softly. "We face this together." They walked out into the harsh light of the moon. The 3 adult dragons watched them with eyes that held the weight of centuries. The largest of them, a dragon with scales like silver, stepped forward. "I am Soran," the dragon said, its voice resonating in Taemin's bones. "Elder of the Drakmir." You, human, have committed a crime. You have taken one of our young and corrupted it with a bond that should not exist. Corrupted? Anger flashed through Taemin. I saved Hanul from dying alone in a cargo bay where your people abandoned them. Soren's eyes narrowed. We abandon the weak so the strong may thrive. That is our way. Your way is cruel, Taemin shot back. Hanul isn't weak. Hanul is brilliant and brave and kind. Things your way would have destroyed. The other two dragons moved closer, but Soren raised a clawed hand. You speak boldly for something so fragile. But words mean nothing. The bond must be tested. If it is true, if it is strong, then we will accept it. If it is false, a corruption, then it must be ended. What kind of test? Taemin asked. Survival, Soren said simply. You and the hatchling will be released into this moon's wilderness. You will have no technology, no weapons. You will face the dangers here for one night. We will observe but not interfere. If your bond is real, you will survive. If it is false, you will fail and the hatchling will be returned to our people. And if we refuse? Then you die here now and the hatchling comes with us anyway. Soren's gaze was cold. The choice is yours. Taemin looked down at Hanul. The dragon looked back up at him, golden eyes full of trust. Through their bond he felt Hanul's question, felt the dragon's willingness to try, to fight, to survive together. We'll do it, Taemin said. Dad, Hanul said, the words still awkward but clear. Together. Soren watched them both, something flickering in his ancient eyes. Then let the trial begin. They were stripped of everything technological. No communicator, no tools, not even Taemin's jacket with its heating elements. They were left with only the clothes on Taemin's back and each other. The three adult dragons took to the sky, circling overhead like massive birds of prey. The moon's surface was harsh. Sharp rocks, thin atmosphere that burned Taemin's lungs, and a cold that cut through his clothes like knives. And according to Do-hyun's data, the moon had native predators that came out at night. Okay, Taemin said, forcing himself to think clearly. We need shelter first. Somewhere defensible. He found a formation of rocks that created a natural alcove. It wasn't much, but it would block the wind and give them some protection. Hanul helped, using small flames to warm the stones. They worked together, gathering what materials they could find, preparing for nightfall. When darkness came, it came fast. The temperature dropped even further, and Taemin's breath came out in clouds. Hanul curled around him, sharing warmth, both of them huddled in their makeshift shelter. Then they heard the first howl. Creatures emerged from the darkness, things with too many legs and eyes that glowed red. They moved fast, hunting in a pack. Hanul growled, flames flickering between sharp teeth. Stay behind me, Taemin said, picking up the sharpest rock he could find. But Hanul didn't stay behind. The dragon moved to stand beside him, wings spread. Together, Hanul said again the word fierce. The creatures attacked. Taemin fought with everything he had, using his rock as a weapon, dodging claws and teeth. Hanul breathed fire, keeping the creatures back, fighting with courage that seemed impossible for someone so young. Through their bond, they moved as one, each protecting the other's blind spots. One creature got past their defense and lunged at Hanul. Taemin threw himself in the way, taking the hit meant for the dragon. Claws raked across his back and pain exploded through him. He fell hard, blood soaking his shirt. Hanul roared, a sound far too big for the dragon's small body. Flames erupted in a column that lit up the night. The creatures scattered, but more kept coming. Hanul stood over Taemin's fallen body, protecting him, fighting with desperate strength. Taemin tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't work. The wound was bad, maybe fatal. Through their bond, he felt Hanul's terror, felt the dragon's absolute refusal to let him die. Then something changed. Hanul's scales began to glow brighter and brighter. The dragon closed golden eyes and reached deep into their bond. Taemin felt something flowing through the connection, warm and powerful. Life energy, Hanul's own strength pouring into him. His wounds began to close. The pain faded. Strength returned to his limbs. But through the bond, he felt Hanul weakening, giving everything to save him. No, Taemin said, reaching for the dragon. Stop, you'll hurt yourself. But Hanul didn't stop until Taemin was healed. The dragon collapsed, exhausted, scales dim. Taemin caught Hanul, holding the trembling dragon close. Above them, the creatures circled, sensing weakness. Taemin felt rage like nothing he'd known before. He'd already lost so much in his life. He would not lose Hanul, not to these creatures, not to the Drakmir, not to anything. He stood still holding Hanul. And through their bond, something happened that neither of them expected. Their minds merged completely just for a moment. Taemin felt Hanul's power as his own. Hanul felt Taemin's determination as theirs. Together, they became something more than either could be alone. Fire erupted from Taemin's hands, guided by Hanul's instinct but powered by their combined will. The flames were white-hot, burning with an intensity that sent the creatures fleeing into the night. The attack left them both exhausted, but they were alive. They collapsed together, Taemin holding Hanul as dawn slowly broke over the moon's harsh surface. Above them, 3 dragons descended, landing in a circle around them. Soren approached, his ancient eyes studying them both. He saw the matching glowing marks on their bodies, the visible proof of their bond. He saw how they held each other, neither willing to let go. "The bond is true," Soren said, and for the first time there was something like respect in his voice. "You have proven it with your actions. You sacrificed for each other in ways my people have forgotten." He looked at Taemin directly. "You are recognized as this hatchling's parent. The bond is sacred and will be honored by the Drakmir Conclave." Then Soren did something that shocked everyone. He bowed his massive head. "But know this, human father. You have begun something that will change the galaxy. Others will not be as understanding as we are. Dark forces will seek to destroy what you have built. Guard Hanul well." With that, the 3 dragons took to the sky, their ship soon following. They left Taemin and Hanul alone on the moon, battered but alive, their bond proven beyond any doubt. Jiwoo landed her ship minutes later, running out to help them. She stopped when she saw the marks glowing on both their bodies, the visible proof of their bond. "You did it," she said, and there were tears in her eyes. "You actually did it." Taemin looked down at Hanul, who chirped weakly but happily. "We did it together," he said. "We always will." 1 year had changed everything again. Hanul was no longer a small hatchling, but a young dragon of impressive size, nearly as large as Jiwoo's ship. The scales that covered Hanul's body were like living jewels, shifting through every color imaginable. Wings that had once been too weak for flight now carried the dragon through space itself. No suit needed, no protection necessary. Hanul had grown into power that should have taken decades to develop. But more than size and strength, Hanul had gained wisdom. The dragon could speak clearly now. Voice like wind chimes mixed with distant thunder. Hanul could read, could pilot ships, could understand complex problems that would challenge many adult beings. The bond with Taemin had done something to accelerate everything, making Hanul grow faster, learn quicker, become more than any normal dragon. They'd built a life together, gathering others who believed in what they represented. Jiwoo had stayed, becoming family. Do-hyun had joined them physically, bringing his scientific knowledge. Others had come too, aliens and humans who saw hope in the impossible bond between a human and a dragon. They'd established a base on a colony world called Haven's Gate, helping those who needed it, defending those who couldn't defend themselves. Taemin's reputation had grown. The human with the dragon child, they called him. Stories spread across the galaxy about the bond that shouldn't exist, about the family that formed across species lines. Some saw it as inspiration, others saw it as threat to the old ways, to the separation between species that had existed for thousands of years. Hanul had learned to take a form that was halfway between dragon and humanoid, making it easier to interact in places built for smaller beings. Even in this form, scales glimmered on skin and golden eyes glowed with inner fire. But the dragon preferred the true form, massive and powerful and free. Taemin stood on the landing platform of their base, watching Hanul practice aerial maneuvers with natural grace. Through their bond, he felt the dragon's joy in flight, the simple pleasure of moving through open sky. The bond had only deepened over the year, becoming as natural as breathing. They shared thoughts now, emotions, even dreams sometimes. Do-hyun approached, his expression troubled. "Taemin, we need to talk. I've been tracking some disturbing patterns." "What kind of patterns?" "Disappearances," Do-hyun said. "Entire colonies going silent. No distress calls, no survivors, just empty settlements. It's been happening across multiple sectors, always on the edge of known space." "Pirates?" "I don't think so. The pattern is wrong. And there's something else." Do-hyun pulled up a holographic display. "These ancient warning beacons have been activating. They're Drakmir in origin, placed thousands of years ago. According to what little data I can find, they were meant to warn of something called the Old Dark." Taemin felt cold despite the warm sun. "What is the Old Dark?" "I don't know exactly. The records are fragmented, mostly destroyed. But from what I can piece together, they're entities from before the current galactic civilization. The Drakmir have been fighting them in secret for ages, keeping them contained. But if these beacons are activating, he didn't need to finish. If the beacons were active, something terrible was coming. A shadow passed over them. Hanel landed on the platform with earth-shaking impact, scales gleaming. Dad, something approaches. I sense it through the bond. A dragon, but filled with urgency. Soren descended from the sky moments later, the ancient dragon moving with speed that spoke of desperation. He landed and immediately transformed into a more manageable size, though still twice Taymin's height. The old dark stirs, Soren said without preamble. The containment fields we've maintained for millennia are failing. We can no longer hold them back alone. The Drakmir Conclave has called for aid, something we have never done before. Why come to us? Taymin asked. Because you and Hanel represent something we've denied for too long, Soren said. Strength through unity. The bond you share makes both of you more powerful than you could be alone. If others can form such bonds, if different species can unite as you have, we might have a chance against the old dark. What exactly are we fighting? Jiwoo asked. Soren's expression was grim. Entities that exist between dimensions that feed on life and light. They were sealed away before most current species even existed. But the seals are breaking and they're coming through. Conventional weapons can't touch them. Only bonded pairs seem able to channel the energy needed to fight back. Hanul moved to stand beside Taymin. Then we fight. We help. Hanul, you don't have to, Taymin started, but the dragon's voice was firm. You taught me that family protects each other, Hanul said. The galaxy is our family now. All these different species, all these people trying to live their lives. If we can help them, we must. Taymin felt pride surge through their bond. His child had grown so much, not just in size but in heart. Then we fight together. The fleet that gathered was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in generations. Drakmir warships flew alongside human vessels. Insectoid fighters moved in formation with crystalline cruisers. Species that had been enemies for centuries put aside their differences because the alternative was extinction. Taymin stood on the bridge of a massive command ship, Hanul in full dragon form beside him. Do-hyun was coordinating scientific teams trying to understand the old dark's nature. Jiwoo was leading a squadron of fast ships ready to evacuate anyone in danger. The battle happened at the edge of the galaxy, where the dimensional barriers were weakest. The old dark emerged like living shadows, things that hurt to look at, that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. They were massive, each one dwarfing even the largest ships. Where they passed, light died, matter dissolved, life simply ceased. Ships opened fire, but the weapons passed through the old dark like they weren't even there. Missiles exploded harmlessly. Energy beams scattered without effect. Panic began to spread through the fleet as beings realized conventional warfare was useless. Bonded pairs forward, Soren's voice boomed across all channels. Only you can touch them. Hanul launched from the ship, Taymin secure on the dragon's back in specially designed armor. Other bonded pairs followed. A handful scattered through the fleet. A human scientist and his partner, an amphibious alien, a warrior and her companion. Beings who had formed connections like his and Hanul's, rare but real. Through their bond, Taymin and Hanul merged their minds. They became one being with two forms, combining human creativity with draconic power. When Hanul breathed fire, it was white-hot, burning with emotional energy as much as heat. The flame struck the old dark and actually hurt it, actually drove it back. Other bonded pairs found similar success. Together, they pushed back against the shadow entities, buying time for the fleet to regroup. But there were so many of the old dark and so few bonded pairs. They were losing ground, being slowly overwhelmed. There are too many. Do-hyun's voice crackled over the communicator. Even with the bonded pairs, we can't hold them all back. Taymin looked across the battlefield, seeing brave beings fighting impossible odds. He felt Hanul's desperation through their bond, the dragon's desire to save everyone but not knowing how. Then Hanul had an idea, sudden and brilliant, flowing through their connection. Dad, what if we could expand the bond? Not permanently, but temporarily. Link everyone who's willing into one network. That's never been done, Taymin said. It might kill us. It might save everyone, Hanul replied. And isn't that worth trying? Taymin felt the weight of the decision. If they failed, they'd die. But if they didn't try, everyone would die anyway. He thought about all the people on those ships, all the different species who had come together despite their differences. He thought about the future they could build if they survived. Do it, he said. Show them what we've learned. Show them that connection is strength. Hanul's voice boomed across all channels, resonating with psychic energy. All beings who are willing, open your hearts. Let us share our strength. Trust in the bond. Taemin and Hanul opened their connection and pushed it outward, offering it to everyone in the fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one being accepted, joining their minds. Then another. Then dozens. Then hundreds. It was overwhelming, feeling so many thoughts and emotions at once. Human courage mixed with alien determination. Fear was shared and lessened. Hope was multiplied. Every being in the network could feel every other, could understand them in ways words never allowed. The network grew until thousands were connected, all linked through Taemin and Hanul at the center. The strain was immense, like trying to hold up a mountain. But they held on, channeling all that combined energy, all that shared will. Together they became something unprecedented. Not a single species or individual, but a true unity of countless beings. When they struck at the old dark now, it was with the power of an entire civilization given form. The shadow entities recoiled, actually retreating from the combined assault. The fleet pressed forward, bonded through Taemin and Hanul, fighting as one organism with many parts. Slowly, impossibly, they pushed the old dark back toward the dimensional breach. Soren led the other Drakmir in sealing the breach, their ancient power guided by the unified will of the network. The barriers were rebuilt, stronger than before, reinforced by the understanding and cooperation of multiple species. When the old dark was finally sealed away, Taemin and Hanul collapsed, the network dissolving as everyone returned to their individual minds. They'd survived, but both were forever changed. The bond had expanded, and now they could sense echoes of everyone who'd joined the network. Not a full connection, but a faint thread to thousands of beings across the galaxy. They woke up in a medical bay, Jiwoo and Do-hyun watching over them with worried expressions. "You've been unconscious for 3 days," Do-hyun said. "We weren't sure you'd wake up." "Hanul?" Taemin asked immediately. "I'm here, Dad." The dragon's voice came from beside him. Hanul had taken the smaller form, sitting by his bed. "We did it. We saved them." "You did more than that," Soren said, appearing in the doorway. "You've started something that will change the galaxy forever. Species across the network are reporting new bonds forming, new connections being made. What you proved, that unity makes us stronger, it's spreading." "Good," Taemin said, taking Hanul's clawed hand. "That's what we hoped for." Months later, they returned to the Wanderer's Rest, the bar where everything had changed. Krelvoth greeted them with warmth, the bar now filled with species that had once never spoken to each other. Bonded pairs sat together at tables, proving that what Taemin and Hanul had started was real and growing. A young alien child approached nervously, eyes wide. "Is it true? Can anyone bond like you and your dad?" Hanul lowered their great head, golden eyes kind. "Family isn't about what species you are or where you come from. It's about choosing to love someone, choosing to stand by them. Anyone can do that." The child smiled and ran back to their family, excited. Jiwoo raised her glass. "To the salvager who found more than scrap metal." Do-hyun added, "To the dragon who taught us that strength comes from connection." Krelvoth rumbled, "To the bond that saved the galaxy." But Taemin simply put his hand on Hanul's scaled head. Feeling the warmth of their connection, the love that had grown from the moment a tiny dragon hatched and looked up at him with trust, the bar celebrated around them. But in that moment they sat in comfortable silence, because they had each other and they'd shown the galaxy that love could cross any boundary. That family was choice, not biology. That together, anything was possible. Hanul leaned against Taemin, rumbling contentedly. "Thank you for not leaving me to die alone, Dad." "Thank you for calling me Dad," Taemin replied. "Best thing that ever happened to me." Outside, stars burned in the endless dark of space, and across the galaxy bonds were forming, connections being made, understanding growing between beings who had once been strangers. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, resistance, those who clung to the old ways. But the future had changed, because a human had chosen to save an abandoned dragon egg, and that dragon had chosen to love him back. And sometimes that's all it takes to change the universe.